Okay, good afternoon. It is such a pleasure. I have for a long time wanted to have a space where some difficult conversations can happen. Difficult because of the kinds of topics I think we are, as a society, really in need of talking earnestly about challenging things in the workplace. And we need to be able to do it well. To have conversations on highly charged topics, and conflict is certainly one of them. It is my honor to have my guest, Brian Dunlap, here, and I want to share. Hi, Brian.
Hello,
A
how are
little bit
you?
of Brian's background so people understand where you're coming from. Ryan Dunlap is an internationally recognized conflict management coach and educator. He's the founder and chief conflict officer at Conflict Ish, a conflict strategy firm that helps leaders improve how they lead themselves and others through conflict. Ryan has a proprietary framework he developed for developing conflict competency. It's called the Real TAC model. And it has been shared with leaders from Chick-fil-A to Yale's prestigious Berkeley Seminary. His rich experience helps audiences understand the depth of Ryan's theories on conflict. He is a former SBU detective, a SWAT hostage negotiator, and crisis intervention officer who has facilitated hundreds of high-stake interviews, interrogations, and negotiations. And he's developed and facilitated transformational education programs for hundreds of law enforcement personnel. I think we're heartened by that. Following Ryan's decorated law enforcement career, he went on to serve as a pastor and executive director of operations for Victory Church in Atlanta, Georgia, as the executive director of a faith-based anti-human trafficking organization called Street Grace for the state of Tennessee, and as executive pastor at City Light Church in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and Change Church in Duluth, Georgia. His influence extends to expert advisor roles for state governments, and Ryan has held appointments on the Georgia Sexual Assault Response Team Expert Committee and the Tennessee Human Trafficking Advisory Council. Ryan also has a footprint in academia. He serves as co-faculty at the University of Buffalo School of Management, and he has developed leadership and conflict resolution programs for Wheaton College and Yale University. Ryan Dunlap, it is an honor.
That's a lot.
That's
No,
a rich life and extraordinary experience.
it's a pleasure to be here and speak with you for sure.
Thank you. Thank you. We've got a half hour to really have some meaty conversations. I'm curious though, Ryan, want to start with something personal. What's bringing you, helping you relax these days?
Oh gosh. Yeah, you put me on a spot with that one.
Yeah.
It's funny. Relaxing has always been something that's tough for me. One of the things that I used to do a lot of was play music, and I've been traveling so much lately. I haven't had a chance to do that, but I'm excited to slow things down here at the end of the year. I've just had my last major trip for the year, and we are in planning mode. So we're relaxing. The last couple of Fridays we've taken off. We went to a play with the kids. We've got
Nice.
some other things coming up. We're getting ready to do our full-on Christmas decoration stuff. So family, spending time with the wife and kids has really been the greatest relaxation for us. And so yeah, just unplugging from work right
Yeah.
now and remembering what it is to be a father and a husband and not a conflict strategist. That's where I'm at right now.
Beautiful, beautiful. And those are critical rules. Those are really important rules. And for someone like you, the work you do has got to be at times quite taxing. And so refilling, refueling, and so on is so very important. Making time for family and all the things that bring us joy as well. So I'm heartened to hear that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, it's taxing, but it's a labor of love. And I think one of the things that, and you mentioned this, a big part of my background was ministry. So having a spiritual center really helps to offset some of that. Otherwise, I think you walk into environments and you navigate high stakes conflict with people and you carry it with you. And so we've got Teflon coating over here. We can step into the fire with other people, but we don't take on their stress or their pressure.
That is exactly right. I'm so glad you say that. And it's not easy. It's a gift when it can happen. I relate very well. We wade into the kind of work we do. We're wading into disequilibrium and turbulence. And it is a gift and a blessing to not internalize it, to your point.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, not healthy conflict, healthier humans is what we're talking about today. Conflict is so easy, right? It beckons. It is a function of the human condition. We're not clones of each other. I'm curious. I really like the way you frame conflict as a fingerprint we carry. And to that, I want to ask you, what question could we ask ourselves in the mirror every morning to change the fingerprint we leave?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I don't know if we change the fingerprint as much as we recognize that we're leaving it behind, right? We leave a mark on everybody we meet, everyone we talk to, everyone we lead and interact with. And so I think the real question is, how do I want to be remembered? Or what is my legacy? Because if we start the day thinking ahead of how we want to be contextualized in the mind of someone else, then we can be a little proactive about how we show up to conversations and how we occupy space with people. And conflict is an interesting practice, because I will tell you, most oftentimes when people reach out for conflict strategy support, they're asking me to help fix other people, right? It's this idea that they don't listen, they don't have their stuff together. How do I fix that person? How do I negotiate with that person over there or influence them to do the things I want them to do? And my practice has really been centered around an oft excluded aspect of conflict strategy, which is interpersonal conflict management. Drawing a circle around yourself, stepping inside of that circle and working on everything inside of the circle. So it's maintaining this self-awareness around how you might contribute to conflict unintentionally, unknowingly, and showing up into a space where if someone else is having a bad day, you don't make it worse. If things are already blowing up, that you don't make that bad situation worse. You actually can be a contributor to make things better. So that's the idea behind a fingerprint, right? I use this language of conflict residue. Everywhere we go, there's residue that we keep on our hands. And every time you touch someone physically, emotionally, spiritually, you are leaving a fingerprint. You're leaving conflict residue behind. What is it like to experience you? And what kind of residue are you leaving behind? And most people, I don't know if they've actually taken the time to sit down and effectively evaluate that. And so many of us have dirty hands. And when we extend a hand to help, we end up contaminating people unintentionally with the things that we haven't healed from, the problems we haven't uncovered, the trauma that we haven't navigated, so on and so forth. And that tends to be problems that other people then have to solve with us or for us. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And, everything you say, the intentionality is undergirding all that you say. If we're thinking about how we're landing with people, it could make us listen and watch for offense giving and maybe mitigate the possibility of offense taking, for one thing. How can people be more conscious of their impact? Let me give an example. Recently had a number of conversations with senior leaders who are struggling. And one individual is caught in the mother of all disagreements with another senior colleague. And their first share leader said to them, I think we have a personality difference. And also said to them, I don't want to go back to what happened in the past. Now, what happened in the past caused one person to have bruised feelings, and not addressing it doesn't help the other party sort of take stock of their choices and what can be possible with regard to injury.
Mhm.
And so how do we help people sort of really step back and connect the dots about causation and mitigation and bringing the temperature down?
Yeah, I mean, it's this is the complex nature of conflict, right? So I always tell people that conflict has an anatomy. And if we don't understand the anatomy of conflict, then we'll never be able to dissect it well. So being able to even have a conflict conversation requires you to have some working knowledge of psychology, sociology, ecology, and anthropology, a little bit of neuroscience, paralinguistics, kinesics, haptics, proxemics. It's complex. There's a lot happening. It's what happens in the human mind, what happens socially between us, what happens culturally, um, and and that's one of the challenges that I think we have is we carry with us the stories of past conflicts and past hurts with other people. Every time we have a conversation with someone, we are leaving a legacy. And one of the reasons this whole idea that I had came up with, there's no such thing as healthy conflict, only healthy people, was that I had seen in workplaces and in living rooms. We say from the interrogation room to the boardroom to the living room to the bedroom. I've seen this pattern where people are able to sit down and have hard conversations and discuss things and solve, quote unquote, resolve conflict. And they'll walk away from those interactions and completely hate each other. And they'll say things like, you know what, gosh, it was so hard to work with Wendy through that problem. I'll never talk to her again. Every time I see that name come across my cell phone, every time I see that email, there's resentment, there's frustration, there's tension lingering. Even though we solved the problem, we never resolved the relationship, right? And so that's what you're expressing here, which is the process of working with people and working through conflict with people leaves residue. And it sounds and looks different for every one of us. Some of us, it's grudges. Some of us, it's resentment. There was a study done some time ago that revealed that the average person maintains 7 grudges at any given time for a period on average of 5 years, sometimes as long as 11 years. So think about that for a second. 5 years worth of grudges, 5 to 11 years worth of grudges for 7 different things that have happened. And we're having to walk through social interactions with this baggage of
And think about the adverse health outcomes that we are inviting with the stress.
For sure. Right. Internally for ourselves, high stress, cortisol, a lot of negative health impacts there. But then also in the room, because what it tends to do is it tends to cause us to invite conflict into circumstances and situations where it might not actually be. Right. Because I remember how you showed up in the past, I now assume that that's how you always show up in the future. And so these are the things, right? So how do you work through that? Practically speaking, you got to talk about it at some level. You have to be able to verbalize your frustrations, because one thing that we know about conflict is not a vast majority, but a lot of conflict is a byproduct of miscommunication and unspoken expectations, right? We tend to live with conflict in our head rather than out in the open. And so if we have a feeling that we're not willing to talk about with another person, and we're wrestling with our feelings privately, right? So we're expressing that emotion, but we're not explaining that emotion, then we're actually contributing to the conflict and the dysfunction, right? So we have to recognize that. The other thing I'd say is, I think it's healthy for us to lower the bar of expectation for other people and to go into interpersonal relationships, recognizing that people are going to let you down. People are going to do things that are going to irritate you, agitate you, or insert adjective, because it's the nature of people. It's the nature of human interaction. And there's this great quote. I'm going to butcher this. I think Ronald Reagan is the one who's quoted with saying it, but it's something to the effect of, someone who agrees with you 80% of the time is not a 20% traitor. And I think this mindset we have right now is that if I'm not 100% aligned with somebody, I can't talk to them. I can't listen to them. I don't agree with them. So you might have a personality clash. You might have a values misalignment. You might have different belief systems, different lived experiences. That is human nature, right? So the goal is not to figure out how to love everything about everyone. It's actually to learn how to love the things that you're aligned on, and how to either overlook or accept, maybe not agree with, but accept that there are going to be some differences. And when we can do that, we're able to establish um, not necessarily a hierarchy, but I consider them buckets, the proper buckets to put people in. Right? So my friends are in this bucket. My inner circle is in this bucket. My colleagues are in this bucket. An acquaintance is in this bucket. And our allegiances, our alignment might look different for each of those buckets. Because in this bucket, I can work with you. In this bucket, I can worship with you. In this bucket, I can war with you. But they're not all the same. And I think where we get things wrong is when we try to put people in the wrong seat. We put people in the wrong bucket, and
Yes.
we treat a colleague with the same esteem and same requirements that we would treat a close friend or an inner circle person. And so we have these heightened expectations of people who we've misplaced in our life. And this is why boundaries are important, and boundaries are only effective if they're articulated. So we have to talk to people and give them the lines so they know which lines to avoid crossing.
Something you said earlier made me think of maybe an unrecognized tendency to hold people to their past missteps, their mistakes, their screw ups. And oh, by the way, as if we don't have our own.
Mm-hmm.
What's happening here when people have such limited tolerance for maybe what we talk about in workplaces is things like grace giving?
Well, I think what's happening is, I don't think we can minimize the fact that when someone has shown us who they are, we can believe them. People's bad behavior and conflict tendencies do cost us something. And so I think on the healthy side of this, we are effectively and appropriately evaluating the cost of dealing with people who have let us down or set us up for failure. So I
But
don't
you're looking for a pattern as well.
Well,
the one-off, an indictment of someone.
Sure. Well, I mean, that's the way our brains typically work. Our brains are pattern recognizing machines, and they are categorical in the way they process information. So we put people in boxes of trust, don't trust, like, don't like, agree, disagree. And so a lot of that, though, is not intentional. It's automatic heuristic processing, where most of us are putting people in boxes and categories that we're not even aware of. Right. So part of this is disrupting this heuristic nature of our brain, which is to cut corners and make quick decisions so that we don't have to think too hard, which is why we come to really quick conclusions about people. So fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. It's kind of the mindset we approach these things with. And I think the way we do this better, or perhaps what it requires of us to be a healthy person, is consider this language that I tell people, which is resilience is the new resolution. So our ability to be more resilient human beings, basically we become healthier, allows us to step back into relationship with people, albeit at a different level, so that we can interact with them without putting ourselves in harm's way. And most of us don't know how to do that, which is why we have this all or nothing approach. We have this cancel culture approach to, oh, they did me wrong, I don't want nothing to do with them. Well, that's not healthy either. It's not reasonable. It's not rational. And it's not always possible, because if that person is your boss or a colleague or your spouse, you're going to see them again. Y'all about to see each other tomorrow. So right. What we do instead is we say, okay, that person was given this level of freedom or this level of access, and they violated it. And so now we have to reestablish what our relationship looks like. And because I do have love for you, because I do have some semblance of respect for you, I'm going to give you access. But now that access is down here. Now we've had to change the level of access you have so that we can mitigate the level of harm you can cause. You understand? And perhaps you can regain some trust, and we can reevaluate the status of our relationship. But it's our ability to put people in appropriate boxes that most people don't know how to do. We have a friend box and an unfriend box. And that's the unhealthy part, I think, that social media has contributed to. I think tension in the world has contributed to. That's time, energy, effort that most people don't have. And so we've shortcut the process.
What is the role of, and where do we place bringing it to the workplace? Why are we here? We're here to contribute our skills and expertise. We're here because we want to keep a roof over our head, food in the belly, care for and educate children and families, contribute to the corporation's mission and business objectives so it can win in the marketplace. There are some critical priorities.
Mhm.
How do we reconcile being leashed by sort of human tendencies to react to aggravations and anger, etc., with the larger critical objective, the why are we here when it comes to the workplace?
I think we have to recognize, one, that's a loaded question. There's a lot of meat on that bone, and it would take a really long time to break it up. But let me give you some things to consider. Um, are high quality friendships and relationships necessary for work to get done in the workplace? No. However, do we know that workplaces where high quality friendships and relationships exist, that those people are able to work at a higher level and essentially synergize? Absolutely. There's synergy there. When you like the people you work with, you do more. And that's, synergy is this idea where 1 + 1 = 3. You come together, I come together with you. It's not 1 + 1 = 2, it's 3, it's 4, it's 5, because we multiply each other. And so, this idea that, hey, we should just be able to come to work and do the job. I'm here for a job. You're here for a job. Let's just do the mission. There's nothing wrong with that. Um, but I think we also have to recognize that if you're just going to work to do the job and you're just doing the bare minimum, just doing what you're paid for, just following the mission, statistically speaking, you're probably going to succeed at a lower rate and produce less than people who are working with each other and truly enjoy the relationships they have. And because we are relational at our core, we are seeking this out. Most of us are looking to connect. Most of us are looking to belong, but we're so afraid of rejection that we will tell ourselves, "I don't need relationships. I don't need people. I don't need to be friends with you." We say that, and then most of our pain points in the office or workplace are relational.
Okay.
Right? It's because we're not being honest with ourselves. If you ask most people, if I would pay you $100,000 to do a job with people you hate, $100,000 to do a job with people you love, most people aren't going to sign up to do the same job with people they hate, because at our core, relationships do matter. We recognize it makes things easier. It's not that it makes the engine run, it makes the engine run smoother. So I think we just have to acknowledge that, even for those of us who are high level thinkers, high context people, who have one or two friends, right? Put me in that category. I'm not a big network guy. I recognize that I can't just be task oriented and results oriented. I still have to build relationships with people. And so the idea that, hey, there's a mission we connect to, great. That's a common why. We need that. When we come to work, we need to have a common why. I would argue, though, it's not enough for high quality work. Not for high quality work. You need a little bit more grease in that engine, and that's tied to influence, persuasion, likability. These are all things that have been well studied, and we know they increase the effectiveness of a team.
Precisely right. Here's a question. Some conflicts are not simply misunderstandings. They can be values collisions.
Mhm.
When two individuals' core values rub against each other sharply, what's actually possible in such a scenario? And is harmony a fantasy we need to stop selling teams?
Oh, I love that question. Is harmony a fantasy we need to stop selling teams? Um, I don't think harmony is a fantasy. I think in many situations it might be a step too far for people who are unwilling or unable to find harmony in the presence of dysfunction or past hurt. Um, so conflict is often shared with people this way. We say we should embrace healthy conflict. I think you've probably heard that language before. Most of us who teach theoretical frameworks around conflict have usually said that at one point or another. Embrace healthy conflict. Why? Because it leads to uh, stronger relationships, increased knowledge and understanding, yada yada yada. Here's here's my antithetical view on this. I'm a bit of a contrarian. I think I kind of hinted at this. I don't believe there's any such thing as healthy conflict. I think conflict is a byproduct of the people involved in the process. So if we're healthy, we will experience a healthy form of conflict. If we are unhealthy, we'll experience an unhealthy form of conflict. Here's what I've known from the work that I've done. No matter how you try to reframe the word conflict, for many people, it will always carry a negative semantic shadow. There's no way it's, I think the old during one of these presidential campaigns, the word that was floating around a lot was lipstick on a pig. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter how you dress it up. It's still a pig. It's still conflict. And you can't make that word feel good to me. No amount of positive reframing and mantras is going to make me feel good about that. So I think it's important that we recognize that we can't just go around telling people who have a strong aversion towards conflict to embrace it, because they're not going to. And for those people, harmony is going to look really, really far off. So instead of trying to convince people that conflict is this good thing or this thing that's good for them, I think what we do is we help them build their resilience. We help them build their chops. We help them get healthy. We help them build their ability to sustain well and to recover well, so that when they are in conflict, it doesn't break them. I think that's a better goal for those people who are really, really conflict averse and conflict avoidant. Research tells us 89% of people avoid conflict. We would most rather just let it grow and hope that it goes away.
Ignore it and it will go away is the line I use.
Yeah. So we just have to recognize that, right? We have to learn to help people build their resolve. It starts with us. This is why my practice is tied to intrapersonal conflict management. If I can build my resilience, my resolve, my countenance, my health, then I can step into these tense moments and be a better version of myself. I'm less likely to break under the weight of somebody else's mess. And I think that's the thing that nobody teaches us. If your health and well-being is tied to somebody else's function, you're setting yourself up to be emotionally reactive. Right?
Absolutely.
If I can only be at my best when you're at your best, then it's going to lead me to only want to control how you show up. Don't talk to me like that. Don't treat me like that. Don't do these things. And that's a part of it. But a bigger part of it is, how do I become unflappable?
Yes.
What are the things that I can do?
One of my favorite words.
Teflon core, right? So that nothing you do breaks me. I think that's a part of it too. And we don't spend enough time talking about that.
What is, if you were to give advice, and then I want to do two things. There's some comments I see, but I'd love to invite members of the audience. If you've got we've got 3 minutes left. Who has a really hairy conflict or a question you'd love to ask someone who can speak well to a complex issue? Put in the comments in the chat, please. I see someone say, my gift to difficult folks is to know how much grace to allow.
Oh, I love it. Listen, what you permit, you promote. What you permit, you promote. So a lot of us let a lot of negativity happen, and it grows and grows and grows and grows. If you're silent, if you're quiet, if you're not holding people accountable the best way you can, right, by being a standard and exercising these boundaries, then you promote negativity. And so how much grace you give, that's the same thing by saying there's only so much of this I'm gonna let you get past me before I say, wait a minute, you do what you want to do, but here's where I step out. I can't control how you show up, but I can control how I show up, and I'm not going to be in this space with you. I love that.
Who has a question for Ryan? And while I try to figure out whether someone wants to ask something, let me ask you another question, Ryan.
Sure.
Many teams have a colleague whose behavior everyone tiptoes around. What is the cost of that silent accommodation? And how does the leader finally address a chronic disruptor without detonating the room?
Well, I mean, one, you do it privately, right? You don't call people out in front of people and expect them to listen well. People are naturally defensive anyway. I think a big part of this is understanding the role of a leader. So I say all the time in my practice when I'm coaching high-level executive leaders from across the world, leadership at its core is problem solving, and leaders who can't solve problems are their organization's biggest problem. So if you've got a problematic employee on your team, you know it and everybody else knows it, but nobody's talking about it. The person in the highest seat who's got awareness is the one who's ultimately responsible for that. So someone has to be able to make sure that bad behavior is addressed problematic behavior, let's call it problematic, because it might not be bad behavior, it might just be problematic, that it's addressed. And what I find is that a vast majority of leaders, especially in 2025 for some reason, are really, really conflict averse and conflict avoidant. So I'll go into organizations all day and they'll say that they've got a problem person, and we'll ask questions like, well, what have you done about it? Or what has the leadership team done about it? And say, well, we're still working through that. We don't want to rub them the wrong way. We don't want to rock the boat. So it goes back to this idea that what you permit, you promote. And if you don't have the countenance for it, the spine for it, you got to build it. You've got to find that. 7 out of 10 people expect leaders to be able to navigate conflict well, and vast majority of leaders have never been trained to do it. So if you're one of those leaders, you need to find a way to strengthen and build your conflict competency. Recognize that conflict competency is multimodal. So you might be able to speak well, but if you can't listen, you're ineffective. If you can speak well, you can listen, but you've got poor body language, you're ineffective. If you've got good speaking, good listening, good body language, but your timing is off, you're going to be ineffective. So you have to be good in all of these areas to optimize how you lead yourself and others through conflict. So conflict optimization is really the core of my coaching. How can you deploy the right thing, the right technique and strategy at the right time in real time? All of those things at the same time. You need to speak, listen, show up, right? You got to do all that at the same time, in real time, at the right time. That's being optimized for conflict. And a lot of leaders simply haven't been trained to do that, which is why we're stuck, which is why everybody's looking for somebody else to solve the problem. So we've got to get the training, which is a lot of what I do as a coach and as a trainer and instructor. Is I give leaders those skills and that competency so that they can show up more effectively in those spaces.
Invaluable work, because it doesn't come naturally to people. They need to learn it. 30 minutes went by like 3 seconds.
Yeah.
Extraordinary knowledge. I want to thank you so very much, Ryan. I do want to leave the audience with a walk away question, which is something I think I want to do in the Rethink Room. And so the question I want to ask you all to walk away and chew on is, if the assumptions you've never named and the tensions you have avoided and the fingerprints you leave at work are suddenly on display for everyone to see, what, if anything, would you do differently tomorrow? Noodle on that, please. Be thinking about your conflict posture. Give Ryan a follow. Pay attention to his extraordinary expertise. There's a lot to learn from him. Ryan, I feel like this is the first of many conversations we need to bring to the world. I look forward to staying in touch with you, and I thank you for joining me in the Rethink Room. Thank you as well, everybody, for joining us here today.
Take care.
Take care, people. Bye-bye.